I'm going to tell you the story of how I met my husband. Here's how I met Harvey. He was working at a little theater in Los Angeles called the Cast Theater. You got to know something about LA theater. People in LA don't go to the theater very much. Consequently, at a small theater, you usually don't have to worry about reserved seating. However, the Cast Theater had this show called Melody Jones, which was a big hit and it was selling out. And the reason is because it was about a stripper and they had a professional stripper in the show doing some professional stripping. It was a legitimate play, but it was a legitimate play about stripping, and there was a stripper and they were packing them in. So my friend Tony calls me one day and asks me if I want to go see this play Melody Jones at the Cast. And I said, sure, but can I bring my friend Gil as well? And he said, sure, but you're going to need to call the cast and make sure that we can all sit together. And I said, fine. So I called the Cast Theater, and the person that I spoke to, I didn't know this at the time, was Harvey. And I was explained, I'm coming to the show tonight. My friend Tony already has a ticket. Me and my friend Gil want to come as well, and we want to sit with Tony. Harvey would always later say that normally he would not have gone through the trouble of rearranging the tickets for someone. But something about me, I was just so nice on the phone. Something about how nice I was on the phone. He just said, fuck it, he'll help me out. So he helped me out. He had to move people around, and he was able to get me and Tony and Gil to all sit together. And we saw the show. And that was that. Then the next day, I was at this bar, which at the time was called Griff's. And it was a gay bar, very popular. And someone there said, oh, I've got to introduce you to someone. You're going to love this guy. And it was Harvey. And he had said the same thing to Harvey. I got to introduce you to this guy. You're going to love him. And I did like him. This little guy, this little bear came up. It was Harvey. He introduced me to Harvey. And Harvey, this is John Topping. And he said, oh, are you the same John Topping who went to see Melody Jones last night? And I said, yeah, how'd you know? And he said, I was the guy on the phone. I go, no way. And he said, did you like the show? Yeah. And he said, actually, the show in the other theater, they had two stages. He said, actually, the show in the other theater is even better. It's called Teen Girl by Justin Tanner. And so the next week, I went with my friend Kyle, and we went to see Teen Girl. And it was better, liked it a lot. Then when Kyle and I were hanging out, and she said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, to tell you the truth, I really want to go back and see Harvey. And she said, fine. So I called the Cast Theater. I said, Harvey, can I come by? Do you want to go out? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, yes. And I think we went to his house, his apartment, and we kind of made love. We kind of had sex. Wasn't that great. And maybe sort of kind of had sex one other time. But we really liked each other, but I wasn't hitting it off because it was a time in my life I was going through a phase where if you came up to me and you made it clear that you liked me, my instinct was to push you away. I was like, you like me? Forget it. Where's someone who doesn't like me? That's who I want. I don't know what I was going through, but I was pushing you away. I pushed people away. And I remember we went to a lunch once, and I remember how excited he was to be there, and he just had this big smile on his face. It was so nice being there, being with me. And I just sort of sat there stone-faced like this and was very unreceptive because it was someone who was interested in me. So I'm not interested. That was kind of that, except since we both liked movies, we would go to see movies a lot together. And the sex kind of died out, but we saw movies and we were friends, but then the friendship just kind of faded away and I kind of drifted out of his life. And that was very common for me at the time, to just drift into someone's life, hit it off, maybe even get really close really fast and then kind of drift away again. That was my modus operandi at the time. And so Harvey drifted out of my life. About 2 years later, we saw each other again at the very same bar, Griff's. We started kissing, and we were really getting into it and really liking it and really hitting it off. And then at one point, he stopped and said, hey, wait a second. Didn't we do this 2 years ago and it didn't go anywhere? And I said, well, that was 2 years ago. This is now. And he was like, all right. And continued kissing each other. Also, I was doing a play that I had written, a show, and I needed a director. And the director I had originally wanted was rejected for lack of experience. And so Harvey was very experienced. And I said, I'm looking for a director. Do you want to direct my show? And he's like, all right, bring the material over and let me look at it. And I brought it over. He looked at it. And he agreed to do it. During the course of working on this show of mine together, I started having a crush on him. And I think that there was a point that everyone except him knew that I had a crush on him. And I finally wrote him a letter and mailed it to him. That's how long ago this was. And he got it in the mail and opened it and read it. So and that's how we came together. That's how our relationship came to be. And we've been together. Later this year, it'll be 32 years. It's a 32-year relationship, almost, from the day we got hitched. We lived relatively happy ever after.